Hello and welcome to season 3 of the NGO Whisperer Show. My name is Carolyne Opinde. I am the founder of the NGO Whisperer. We are a consulting business that provides technical support to nonprofits so they can successfully impact people's lives. Joining us today from Washington, D.C. in the United States of America is Dr. Lotus Riche. She is the founder of Lotus Riche Ignites and a global leader. Dr. Lotus, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me as your guest. I am humbly honored to be here today. And you look fabulous as always.
It is such an honor and a pleasure to have a global leader with a wealth of experience. And today we're going to focus on a topic that is very close to my heart. We're going to have a dialogue on women in leadership.
Yes.
Dr. Lotus, you are a woman in leadership. From the beginning, I have gone through your bio and you have a wealth of experience. People might wonder, how did you get into the leadership roles that you currently hold? And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you a little bit about her. Dr. Lotus Riche is a certified life coach, motivational speaker. She's an author, transformational coach, certified trauma professional, and Guinness World Record holder 2020. Hear that, ladies and gentlemen. She has served in the US Navy. If that is not a lot, she worked in the United States and also in Japan.
Yes.
She is a philanthropist. Oh my God, I can go on and on and on and on. But share with us, how did you step into these leadership roles?
I believe that I stepped into the leadership role as a kid, actually, because my parents, they're both phenomenal. And what they told myself and my sister at the time was that leadership started within us. If we wanted to do something, we had to kind of take the bull by the horns, if you will, and do whatever it is that we set out to do in excellence and not give any excuses for failure, because we had every reason to win. And I remember as a little kid, I told my dad, I said, Dad, you know, I really want to make some money of my own because we got allowance, but I wanted to have extra so that if I wanted to do something extra or do something for my mom and dad without them giving me money, I could do it. And I must have been like 7 or 8 at that time. And so my dad said, okay, why? And I explained to him, and he said, okay, well, that's fine. You can do it. Are they hiring anyone? But, you know, he knew they're not going to hire kids typically. Yeah. And I said, Daddy, I don't know. He said, well, you should go over there and ask them. And so I went over to the little insurance agency and I asked them, and the gentleman said, what would you do? And I said, well, I can dump the ashtrays. I can sweep the floors. I can take out the trash. And they hired me. And they hired me. And that taught me that I could do, be, or have anything I needed or wanted. I didn't have to work at that age. My parents took very good care of us. But I wanted to do something. I wanted to make a difference for myself and just to be able to give to my parents. And so leadership started right then and there because it took mental fortitude and critical thinking, because that's what my dad was having me do, critical thinking, to lead myself over there, to have the courage to ask. And that, I think, is when it started for me, the first taste of leadership, because I was leading myself, as most leaders do. We have to lead ourselves first in order to lead others successfully and in excellence.
That reminds me of my own story when I started. I was about your age and I was a Girl Guide. And we had to raise funds to support children who could not bring food to school during lunchtime because they came from far, and the school offered a feeding program, but you had to pay for it, and people had to pay 5 Kenya shillings. It's not much, but yes, back then, some people could not afford it. And so as Girl Guides, we decided to raise funds, and I went around helping my neighbors clean dishes on a Saturday morning. So that story that you have just shared with us reminded me of my own story. And that's how I actually stepped into leadership roles. Yes. By putting myself out there. And you've mentioned two very important things: courage and mental fortitude, as well as critical thinking. And that's something that we really need today and in this day and age. Now, to take us into leadership, I would like us to give us your perception of the difference between management and leadership.
Well, let me first say that something that you just said that I noticed is that we both looked for a problem and we became the solution. And that's what leaders do. And if you look at management basically consists of controlling a group or a set of entities to accomplish a particular goal that's set out either by a corporation or by a person in that management role. But leadership is diversely different in regard to that. It takes the individual's ability to influence, to motivate, to encourage, to enhance the cognitive processes of one person or a group of people that enables others to basically contribute to the organization as a whole, so that it's a success for all and not just for one. And so the management piece really looks at, look, we're going to get this job done no matter what it is, because we have to do it for this reason, for the company maybe. But leadership says, no, let's not only get it done for the company, but let's get it done for each individual right here. Why? Because if we all come together and form cohesion, the corporation will not only be better for it, but we in the leadership role will have people that will gain something from our leadership. Because this is one thing that I know, and being in the military, I've led from the deck plates. That means I was leading with the people in the areas where the leadership needed to take place, not from a managerial position where I'm giving the orders. I am being about the orders. I am embodying it. I am embodying what I want to manifest. And that's how leaders work. And there's a big difference between them. They have similarities, but leaders lead not just from the front, but also from the back. And let me share this with you, Dr. Opinde. I had a gentleman that worked for me when I worked for the prison system. And I had about 100 men that worked for me. And I was over quality control and warehousing. And I had this gentleman, Caucasian, all the gentlemen primarily were Caucasian, all the supervisors. I was the only female woman of color supervisor in the southern region in the prison systems in South Carolina. And what a inmate told me, he said, you know, Miss Riche, you don't have to lead from the front seat of the Cadillac. You can lead from the back seat, because sometimes, you know, leaders are placed in roles where they may not get the title, but they're given the role of leadership. And that's what leaders do. I always say great mentors need great mentors. Leaders are also mentors. And that's the difference between the leader and the manager. Not that the manager is not a mentor, but oftentimes they're not focused on mentoring. They're more focused on the goal at hand.
What do you think about this statement? All managers are leaders, but all leaders are not managers.
I think that can be deemed as a true statement from my point of view. And the reason why I say that is because managers must lead in order to manage. But a leader does not always have to manage everything that's going on. Why? Because they give it to their managers. Like many leaders, as you know, like you and myself, we have a staff of people that help us. And we have what we call managers that manage different divisions of our corporations. And so our managers are leaders because they lead the people that work with us and for us. And we as leaders primarily focus on leading. Now, can leaders be managers? Yes, in my opinion, they can. Because when you have a manager and they're having problems on the deck plates, sometimes that leader has to go to the manager and help them manage the situation at hand through proper leadership.
Wonderful. Now, I want us to go deeper into your personal experience as a leader in the United States, and then you found yourself in Japan.
Yes.
How did that happen? And then also, I would like you to share with us, as a woman leading, most of the time you are in a male-dominated company or leadership role, and you are the only woman sitting on those tables or boardrooms. What is your perception of the difference between leadership or women in leadership in the two cultures that you worked in the United States and in Japan?
That's we're gonna have to do a second show for that. It's huge because, as you said, I've worked for some dynamic corporations. I've worked for Eastman Kodak. I've been in the military, and I've also worked for the Department of Defense. And I've worked for one of the top data centers in the United States, which is QTS. And one thing that is pervasive everywhere I've gone is that oftentimes you may not see a lot of women in leadership, and even more so, not of women of color in roles of leadership. Oftentimes, women of color in these roles of leadership, we are the only ones. And many times when I've worked for companies, I was the only female of color. Sometimes I was the only female in a world of nothing but men. And the difference that I learned here in the United States is many women of color are not only competing with Caucasian men, Caucasian women, and other cultures here in the United States, because as you know, the United States is a melting pot. We're also competing with our counterparts, men of color. And then the thing that really makes it even heavier for us is that oftentimes we're competing with other women of color who may or may not be for us because it is so competitive. And then when you go abroad, you find people that you're really not familiar with. So when I worked for the Department of Defense, I worked for the Navy, and many of my counterparts were Caucasian, but the military is also a melting pot. So my best friend and I, we went over there together. So she's from Jamaica. So of course she's a woman of color. And then there was another woman of color, but everybody else outside of maybe 3 men who were men of color, they were Caucasian or of a different culture. But the wonderful thing about being there was because most of us was from the United States. So we understood the fundamentals of how leadership was in the United States, what people of color had to endure here. And oftentimes, no matter how many degrees you have, you don't get the leadership role, not based on your educational standard. Because we could talk about statistical data that purports that oftentimes there is an imbalance when it comes to leadership and those who are placed in leadership based on their education versus the color of their skin. And perhaps that's a topic for another time. But just to say that there is a disparity in leadership when it comes to men of color versus women of color, Caucasians, and any other ethnicity versus women of color. Oftentimes in the past, we have been given the bottom of the barrel, but we, and I say we, to include you, myself, and many women around the world. It is a new dawning. We are stepping further into greater roles of leadership. We will not be denied, not because we're waiting and chomping at the bit for someone to give us the opportunity. We are creating the opportunity of leadership. So many years ago, it was diversely different how women of color stepped into leadership. But I think because of leaders globally, women of color, to include Asian women and anyone with melanin in their skin, they have turned the table for the dawning of a new day. Just look at our vice president here. She has done for many what they may have thought was the unthinkable or the impossible. But yet she turned the impossible and she used the word and took it to I am possible. And so that opens up a whole new door for leadership for women of color. And so my thought process is this: it doesn't matter where I am in the world. It doesn't matter what job I do or how I lead. I lead from the internal fortitude that I have because I am a leader, a phenomenal leader. It's just like Maya Angelou talked about, that we are phenomenal. And it is up to us to step into our brilliance and be leaders. And so I hope I've covered that, because it's really, really passionate for me, Dr. Opinde. I'm really passionate about women of color being in leadership, but also this. I would like to suggest to every woman out there, if you are a woman in leadership, please reach back. Find a young woman who needs your tutelage and help her. And let us furthermore not be at odds with one another, because we are all sisters, no matter what skin we're wrapped in. And in order for us to come of age and to step into these new phenomenal roles of leadership, we must help one another, because that is true leadership. Being self-sacrificing and giving one to another is going to continue to usher us into this new millennium called the millennium of the woman in leadership.
How wonderful. Just to emphasize what we do here at the NGO Whisperer, as you may see on the cover of the NGO Whisperer magazine, we purposely have women in leadership on the cover of our magazine. The magazine is not specifically a women magazine, but we have purposely done that. Why? Because we want to showcase that there are excellent women around the world who are leading within the nonprofit sector, funding agencies, government, philanthropies around the world. So we have them on the cover, and we have been honored to have the first female president, Her Excellency President and Professor also of chemistry, just to emphasize, because I also studied chemistry. I'd like to say that. She is a professor of chemistry and was the first female president of Mauritius, Her Excellency Professor Amina Gurib Fakim, on the cover of our magazine. And she told me this, Dr. Lotus, she told me, Caroline, people often say, break the glass ceiling. Who told you there's a glass ceiling, and who put the glass ceiling there? What do you think about that statement? Because I was asking her, oh, how did you break the glass ceiling? And she just turned the question back to me when I had a conversation with her. And she told me that. Who told you there's a glass ceiling?
Well, I think there is a standard that is set. And I think the standard is often set by men, and women subscribe to it. And I believe that the ceiling that we call glass ceiling is a frame of mind that we have been given so that we operate within that realm. So this is what I believe. You bring about what you think about. So if you think about that there is a proverbial glass ceiling, then for you, there will be. But for me, there is no glass ceiling. You know why? Because I don't confine myself to boxes, because the glass ceiling has to be a ceiling for walls and a floor, which if you have that, it forms a box. And just in a conversation the other day, I was talking about this box that we tell people to think outside of the box. Well, I tell people, don't think outside of the box. And let me share something with you, if I may. Let me share something with you. So here's the box. If you tell someone, think outside of the box, they may land here, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you tell them there is no box, no walls, no ceiling, they may land outside of the stratosphere. Because if they just think outside of the box, they're still next to the box. Mm-hmm. Or if they happen to torpedo a little further away from the box, they're still just near the box. But if you tell them to think outside of the stratosphere, because anything they want, anything they have, anything they need is doable. They are possible. There is no glass ceiling. There is nothing to keep them bound, because hell, the box doesn't even exist.
Wow.
You empower them. For me, there is no glass ceiling. If you don't want a glass ceiling, grab something out of the box and send it into the stratosphere, and you should be the leader in going to the stratosphere and not be contained by a box, a ceiling, a wall, a floor, because all things is possible.
Absolutely. Amen and amen to that. Going into the next question as we explore women in leadership through your life experiences. Now, you have led and excelled in very many industries. We've talked about that. You've mentioned mental fortitude. You've mentioned courage. You've mentioned the courage to move forward beyond and excel and not be confined by any glass ceiling or any box. What is the key ingredient that helps? Looking at the different women who have excelled in industries that are usually male dominated, what do you think they have in common that others may not have? And what can we learn about them?
I think one of the things that they have in common is belief in themselves. They have what I like to call the secret sauce to success. And it starts with searching your soul to find out who you are first and foremost. And then being all right with who you are. Because when you become happy with who you are, now you may not be happy with your station in life, therefore you're going to aspire for greater heights. And you may not be happy with the extra pounds that you may have gained, but you can lose that weight or be happy with the skin that you're in. But it really starts with self-acceptance. And that's where it had to start for me. And after many years of suffering, I learned to accept myself for who I am, how I am, and what God has called me to be on the planet. And so that is one of the first secret sauces to success, is making sure you become comfortable with who you are as a spiritual being having a human experience on this planet. Another key to success, another key ingredient is to always, first and foremost, whatever God you believe in, whatever source energy you believe in. And even to my brothers and sisters around the world that say, well, Lotus, I don't believe in God. Guess what? It's all right. You believe in something, just like you believe that you would get up out of your bed this morning. It took energy, and we all come from energy, and we're all going back to energy. So whatever you believe in, have the faith beyond faith to call upon your higher source for direction. And when you call on your higher source for direction, listen. Listen as you are guided and move into action. No matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, move into action. And that's a key to success, to be able to go to one's higher source for direction rather than subscribing to a lot of what we may call the naysayers, those that tell you you cannot do it because you are a woman, those that tell you that you cannot do it because you come from the wrong side of the tracks, because success does not have a side of the track. Success just is success. And in order to get to the success, you have to believe in yourself, ascribe to your higher source for guidance, follow that guidance, move into action. And another key component to success is finding something here on the planet that has presented itself as a problem and be the solution. People who are successful, such as Dr. Opinde and the First Lady, even our First Lady or our Vice President here, Kamala Harris, Miss Oprah Winfrey, and so many more, and people such as myself. One of the main things that we embody is that, in my opinion, we look to solve the most dire of problems and not only be a part of the solution, but be the solution and help others be the solution to their own problems in their own lives. And so those are some simple keys to success that if you honor those, you will be successful. And one of my primary keys to success is I give love to all with harm to none. And when we operate and lead with love, we are bound to be successful. And one last thing, every successful person, I think at some time in his or her life, understands that success is different to all people. But each individual that is successful decides what success is for him or her. And then they work at it and they become the success that they desire. And I want to share this with you folks. If you don't see a way for you to be successful, create a way. And if your success is difficult to get to, never give up. Beat it into submission. Beat it getting up in the morning. Instead of getting up at 9, get up at 4. Beat it when you go to the office and someone says, well, we don't have to be here till 8. Be there at 7:30. Beat it into submission when you rather go to sleep on that book that you're writing. Stay up all night if you have to, because you can rest when you're in the grave. And if you do that, you will attain success, whatever your success is to you.
Those are wonderful insights and words of wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of our show today, I would like to invite Dr. Lotus Riche to speak to women and girls. These are very close to my heart. Yes, we value men and boys, but we know for centuries and centuries, women have been undermined in our societies. And I would like you to speak to women and girls around the world. How can they position themselves to take their place in whatever community they find themselves?
I challenge you. I challenge you every day to know that you are here on this planet for a reason. Your voice, your life, the very essence of who you are has been brought to this planet at this time because you matter. See, your voice, your message to the world is ordained specifically for you to give it. Devoid of where you come from or what you look like or the hell that you have been through. Rise through all of that hell. Rise through all of the times when you're confused or you're not sure, and know that you have been brought to this planet for a purpose at this time. And know that even in the deep recesses of the most remote places on the planet. People are waiting to hear your message. But if you never stand up and take your rightful place, someone may perish and never become what he or she must become because they haven't heard your message. I encourage you, come from behind the things that are in front of you. Step out into your brilliance. Each one of you, every young girl on the planet, you have a voice. Even if you haven't found it yet, seek it until you find it. And when you find it, know it, use it to bring someone up to the next level of their excellence. And I know sometimes, as with me, you're going to find times where you face opposition and it gets hard for you and you feel like you're alone and there's nobody there. And when you feel that, hear my voice and still rise, like Maya Angelou talks about. Still rise, still run, because this world will not be all that it could be without your voice, without your works, without you taking your rightful place in the leadership roles. And now remember, you don't have to be out in the forefront to be a leader. Earn your worth through your works and let no one tell you you don't belong in the marketplace. Let no one tell you you don't have a rightful place, because from the very day of creation, before you were ushered into the womb of your mother, you had a rightful place to be here, because the very God that exists for us all deemed you worthy to be here. And just as you are worthy to be here, know that other young girls and other women all around the world, devoid of what color skin they're in, they deserve to be here. And instead of repelling, unite. And let's make this world a better place. Let's change the frequency and raise us to a higher frequency. Because you know what? The best is still yet to come. And you are the best. So let's be a part of the greatness that's about to come.
Those are powerful words, Dr. Lotus. Where can people find you?
Well, people can find me, if you look right here, you can find me at Lotus richeignitesyou.com. That's my email. Send me an email and reach out to me. You can also call me at 1-800-593-9733. And you can also reach me, go to my website, www.lotusricheignitesyou.com. You can reach me on Facebook at Lotus Riche, as well as Lotus Riche Ignites. You can reach me on YouTube at Lotus Riche Ignites, Instagram, LinkedIn, almost every platform. I am there in some shape, form, or fashion. You can also reach me on my podcast at Lotus Riche Ignites. And I'll have another platform coming up really soon in the next 2 months that you can reach me on. So Dr. Opinde may have the secret sauce before that launch, and you can reach me there too. But you got to talk to Dr. Opinde to find out the secret sauce.
Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you today to discuss this, a dialogue on women in leadership around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been such an honor and a pleasure to have Dr. Lotus Riche join us today. Thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the wonderful things that you're doing here on the planet to help women ignite and take flight in every area of their life. I humbly appreciate you. Thank you so much.
How wonderful it is. Today we have discussed it, and this is just the tip of an iceberg. This is not it all. And we will be launching a masterclass on women in leadership with Dr. Lotus Riche very soon. keep your eyes peeled. Go to the NGO Whisperer website, which is ngowhisperer.com/masterclass, to learn more about how we can provide support to you, your organizations. Of course, men are invited, but this is specifically, we would like to have more women join us to equip them with what it takes to take them to the next level, as we have heard today from our very own Dr. Lotus Riche, and an instructor of the NGO Whisperer Masterclass, Women in Leadership. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Remember, it's all about connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives globally.